So let's begin. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to our sixth session of our Youth Empowerment series. My name is Jessenia, and I'm here today with my co-hosts Rijin, Cynthia, and Hunyah. We are live every week, Wednesday from 7 to 8 p.m., bringing light and awareness to the topics and issues that are most important to youth in our society today. So for everyone who joined us last week, thank you so much for attending our session on cybersecurity and staying safe on the internet. The recording for the previous session is now posted to our YouTube channel, so please be sure to follow us there as well as our other social media to always stay up to date. Now, getting into today's topic, we will be hosting this session on how you can take control of your personal finances, learn to invest, and gain insight on how to be financially free in your future. Today, we are joined by the amazing Jyoti Gupta, a coach, mentor, and senior manager at TD Bank. Please, everyone, give a warm welcome to Jyoti.
Thanks so much, everyone.
Okay, so next slide, please. For today's agenda, we will begin by learning a little bit about what financial literacy is, then delving into personal finance, investing for a secure future, opening a TFSA account, and then having a QA session with Jyoti to answer all of your questions. So let's begin. Now, many of you may wonder, what is financial literacy and why is it important? So financial literacy is the ability to understand and effectively use various financial skills, including personal financial management, budgeting, and investing. So let's take a look at this short video, and it'll basically summarize a little bit more about what financial literacy really is.
What is financial literacy? Financial literacy, or financial education, is the ability to understand and effectively apply various financial skills, including but not limited to personal financial management, budgeting, savings, and investing. Financial literacy is essential to understanding and developing good short-term and long-term financial habits that lead to a greater financial well-being. As an example, sometimes as consumers, we are unaware of the financial consequences of taking on too much personal debt and having little to no savings. In addition, the lack of disposable income also creates the inability to deal with unexpected emergencies that may arise or receive proper financial counseling. So in response to this problem, in 2004, the United States Congress designated April as National Financial Literacy Month by passing Resolution 316. Each April, federal and state agencies, credit unions, schools, nonprofit organizations, businesses, and other entities observe National Financial Literacy Month to raise awareness about the importance of financial literacy education in the United States and the consequences that may be associated with lack of understanding about your personal finances. So how can financial literacy help students? Financial literacy helps individuals become self-sufficient so that they can achieve financial stability. By being financially literate, one can be efficient with their finances and hence achieve more goals and maximize the value of their income effectively. This allows individuals to make less financial mistakes that could have a negative long-term impact in the future. Throughout the month of April, NYU's Financial Education Department, along with the Student Link Center, will be providing videos to help you gain insights on several essential current financial topics. Make sure you check out our Financial Literacy Month series to learn more about how financial literacy education affects you.
Okay, awesome. So as illustrated in the video, financial literacy really is the foundation of your relationship with money, and it truly is a lifelong journey of continuous learning. In school, many of the essentials of personal finance have not been taught, and the government just recently implemented some financial literacy for grade 9 students that will commence this year in September. So I wanted to know everyone's opinions going through the education system here in Canada. Do you all think that financial literacy is an essential skill, just as we learn science and math, and should it have been implemented earlier on?
Yes, I think so. It should be implemented a lot earlier because often we're not familiar with it once we graduate from college. There's student debt, there's things for mortgage, there's certain applications that require you to have a good debit, so a good credit score. So I think these things matter. So this should have been implemented a lot earlier.
Yeah, definitely. I agree. And I think, unless you have a background or if you're studying finance in university or something like I have been, there really isn't a lot of information out there, even as you go through college. And some of my friends who are studying other fields, such as science or in the arts, they don't know a lot about those things and are still pretty confused, even about the basics such as OSAP and repayment of loans and all of those things. So hopefully, if there's anyone here today, we can answer your questions.
Jessenia, may I add, you know what? I know I can share something that my parents taught me earlier on. And that's really that, those life skills, like you got to know how to ride a bike, you got to know how to swim, or, just be independent. I think financial literacy is definitely one of those life hacks that you need to know really up front, because again, how many people do we know that work so hard to make their money? But then at the end of the day, if they don't manage it well, if they don't know how to put money aside or plan for the future, honestly, no matter how hard you work, money is like, it'll come and go. And then you would be, always working hard, turning on the wheel. So yeah, it's definitely a life hack. And I truly wish that our education system incorporates this as a part of a mandatory, training earlier on, and the earlier the better, right?
Definitely. No, I agree. I think it can even start as early as elementary school because, people start their first part-time jobs at 14, 15 years old. So definitely be beneficial. Thank you for sharing.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's begin with some of the fundamentals. So personal finance is the financial management which an individual or a family unit performs to budget, save, and spend money and financial resources over time, taking into account all the various financial risks and future life events that may occur. So today I'll be covering some fundamentals that all people, and especially the youth, should be aware of as they're beginning their journey. Okay, so let's now discuss 3 core principles that I believe all young adults should be aware of when they first begin earning money. So the first step is to identify your priorities and construct a short-term and long-term budget for yourself. So it's important to set easy, realistic goals for your money. So for example, a short-term goal could be 3 to 6 months and might involve saving for a new phone. Then a medium-term goal could be 1 to 3 years and maybe to save towards the down payment for your first car. And then a longer-term goal might be to save towards post-secondary education costs. So as we know, a lot of those costs, they do tend to add up, and then without the support of loans or other stuff from the government, it is quite expensive. So the earlier that you start, the better. So you're not put in that stress during that time. So the next thing to be aware of is that everyone should begin an emergency fund that they contribute to every month. So with the unpredictability of the job market these days, there can be unexpected layoffs and events like we just witnessed with COVID-19. So having money and savings to use for emergencies can keep you out of trouble financially and definitely help you sleep better at night. So also, if you get into the habit of saving money and treating it as a non-negotiable monthly expense, then pretty soon you'll have more than enough emergency money saved up, and even some extra, maybe for retirement, vacations, or for a down payment further down the line. So you can put your funds in a high interest savings account in order to earn interest back on the money that you save. And finally, the last tip is to build your credit rating. So once you turn 18, you will be able to apply for a credit card, which can be done through your bank. In today's society, it's almost certainty that you'll need to borrow money from lenders for major purchases like a house or a car. So establishing a solid credit profile means that you'll have better chances of being able to borrow money at the lowest interest rate. So not only can having a poor credit score make it difficult to borrow money, but you would also have difficulty finding employment or even a place to live. It's really common for landlords and employers to access your credit profile and see if you're reliable and would be a good fit for the position. So on the topic of credit cards, let's evaluate some of the key factors to look for when deciding which credit card to use. So it's essential for you to do your research and really choose what best suits your needs. And the bottom line is to ensure that you are able to pay the card off every month to avoid paying any additional late penalties and fees. So some things to consider is that there is no annual fee, a longer grace period, Some even offer higher cash back, lower interest rates, and rewards that can be used for other things, such as Aeroplan miles. So this is why it's important to weigh the risks and rewards of a variety of cards and talk with a financial advisor when choosing what is best for you. So I know, for example, on the TD website, there's a section where you're able to compare credit cards. So I would encourage anyone who's interested to look into that. And then through that way, you're really able to see what are the pros and cons of each. And for example, if you are a student, pick the card that's best for you. Okay, so now we can go into investing for a secure future. So let's look at some of the investing strategies that can be used to invest for the long term in order to build financial security throughout your life. Okay, so first let's take a look at compound interest and time value of money. So there's a famous saying that says time is money, and that could not be more true. $1 today is worth more than $1 tomorrow due to these two reasons below: inflation and compound interest. So I'd like to ask any of you guys, do any of you know what these two terms mean, inflation or compound interest?
Yes, like in my understanding, inflation would be just like when over time, like the value of like the dollar is not as worth in the future compared to today. So like just when the price of goods just goes up. So then it's that you like I know that back in like near the World War I, World War II, when like Germany had there was something called hyperinflation back then, where there is a fact that many of the kids they were actually using money and currency to actually build kites, and they were flying around, and so it really shows how the money that they had really had no value for the goods, just because over time the goods prices were going up and the money had no value for so in the future it just shows that like the value of money just deteriorating over time.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, perfect. Yeah, that really explains inflation. So I'll give a brief overview. So time value of money is based on the idea that people would rather have money today than in the future. So given that money can earn compound interest, it is more valuable in the present rather than in the future. So also there is inflation. So inflation, as you said, Rijin, it increases prices over time and decreases your dollar spending power. So inflation is something that's really unavoidable and increases prices over time, which means that each dollar you own today will buy more in present time than it would in the future. So that's why investing is so important. But what's the point of investing money if it won't grow faster than inflation? So you'd be better off spending it now when it has a higher value. That's where the compound annual interest rate comes to the rescue. So compound interest is the interest that is calculated on both the initial principal and the interest from previous periods. So this is the method for growing your investments faster over time, especially if you start as a young adult. So going on to the next slide, why don't we take a look at an example of compound interest? So let's say you invest $100 into a stock today and you expect to grow 5% annually. By the end of the first year, you have $105 in that compounding period as shown on the graph. By the end of year 2, it's grown another 5% from $105 and it's now worth $110.25. While that's only an extra 25 cents in this case, over long periods of time with substantial dollar amounts, that can end up being a lot of money. So now that we've covered some of the basics on time value of money and compounding interest, let's take a look at some of these options of where to invest. Now, it's always best to consult with a professional, such as a financial advisor, who can really assess your portfolio needs and your goals for the short and long term. But these are just some recommendations. So for students who are just beginning their investing journey, this can seem very overwhelming without having any background in finance. A recommendation is to minimize risk and invest for the long term, such as investing in bonds and mutual funds. Bonds are generally a safer investment with lower risk, but they don't have any chance of earning more than the interest already agreed upon. Investing in mutual funds, for example, is a great way to prevent the individual stock risk. Mutual funds allow you to invest a small portion of your money across a range of firms. So these portfolios are picked by a mutual fund manager who spreads the risk by including a wide variety of companies from different industries. And mutual funds are a great option if you're looking to invest in a certain industry or market, all while tailoring the risk to levels you feel comfortable with. Another way to spread this risk is without the chance of human error is investing in index funds. So index and mutual funds both try to lower the risk of losing your money on individual stocks by spreading your money throughout different companies. Now, something that's a little bit more high risk is investing in individual stocks. So picking individual stocks that you think will beat the market is a time-consuming process. You're working against millions of other investors who are all trying to accomplish the same task of finding the best stock to invest in. While there's a chance of doubling or even tripling your money in a short period of time, as we saw with GameStop just a couple of months ago, there's also the chance that the company you choose to invest with goes under and you lose all your savings. So the key to managing this risk is diversifying your portfolio between different stocks in different sectors and industries. And finally, a long-term investment is real estate. So real estate investment lets people grow their net worth by purchasing more and more properties. And it's a good investment in the long term due to the value of land appreciating over time. As you pay down your mortgage, your equity builds, and the housing market is not too volatile, making real estate a safer investment than many other options. Now, you may wonder, so you have all this information on investing, but where can you actually do this? And that's where I bring up the TFSA account, so the tax-free savings account. So a TFSA account is a registered investment account you can use to invest with, to save for a big purchase or a goal, like a car, your gap year from college, or a down payment for a house. As long as you're above 18 in Ontario, you can open up a TFSA account and use it for investing. And the benefits of this account is that you don't typically have to pay taxes on your earnings, and you won't have to pay income taxes on your TFSA investment income from either receiving dividends, interest, or capital gains. Plus, with the TFSA, you can withdraw and take out money at any time without any penalty. So the contribution maximum is $6,000. So this is a great way for students, especially, to begin their investing journey. All right, so this kind of concludes my slides on investing in personal finance. I really hope you've all learned something and have some interesting questions ready to go. So now I would love to introduce our special guest, Jyoti, who's a coach, mentor, and currently the Senior Manager of Branch Channel and Network Delivery at TD. She has worked in the financial industry for 24 years in various progressive roles, assisting Canadians meet their financial goals. Jyoti is an avid mentor and coach for youth and new immigrants to Canada as they build a foundation for their financial well-being. She believes in lifelong learning and is here to share her wealth of knowledge with all of us today. Please give a warm welcome to Jyoti.
Thank you so much. I hope you guys can hear me okay. First things first.
Yes, perfect.
Awesome. Perfect. I think there's a little bit of a lag in the camera, but I hope it's not too distracting. But no, thanks so much, Jessenia. I want to just first of all acknowledge the summary that you presented today. I think you did a great job capturing the financial literacy or the journey for each one of us. I think the sooner we start, the better it is. The younger you start, the better it is, the more smart you will be around how to manage your money, how to spend your money, or how to save your money. Right. I think before we get into the Q&A, I just wanted to quickly summarize. I know you talked about the 3 principles. That's great, but I know there's tons of things that are on everybody's mind because you're students, you have the student's loan, loans on your head, and if you don't already, at some point you're going to be borrowing money. Money management, I think, is really, really important, especially when it comes down to those student loans, your credit rating. I know when you get out of school or when you hit age 18, every single bank, every single financial institution, every single department store wants to give you a credit card because, they know that you're building your future. There's no income required. You can get a $500 credit card to start building your credit right at the age of 18, which is great. But that is also the most critical time to really build those foundational values on how to manage your credit. I think if I had to categorize what's most important in learning in your financial journey throughout your life, I think my top of the list would be, at least in Canada, I can say, is managing or making sure you know how to manage your credit. That is step 1, because everybody wants to lend you money, but they also need some caveat. Like there's some requirements. The first one, yes, you get it because you're starting off, but then after that, you require your income. You require, a good credit history. So really a proof of how well you've been handling it. And more importantly, your capability to actually pay it back, which would be your income, right? So all that really sticks with you. And in Canada, I can't emphasize enough. I think it sticks with us for the rest of our life. Right from applying for a job to renting a house to getting your first mortgage or your first house. I think credit is checked everywhere. So the only thing I would say is, please, if you've got a credit card or if you're excited to get one already, or you have a few, first things first, please make sure, although it's very enticing to have a nice limit on your credit card, but please budget, spend what you can pay back. I think, everything is like, it all looks glitzy and glamoury when you see all those benefits that the credit cards come with, whether it's Aeroplan, Air Miles, cashback, and all that. But we always sometimes have to think like it's sometimes maybe too good to be true. So it almost feels like you got to be smarter than that. So what can I do to actually make sure I can take benefit of those rewards, whatever it is? If you're going to carry a balance month to month, hey, you know what? The amount of interest you're going to pay is going to be a lot more in value than the benefits you're going to get from the Aeroplan miles or any other benefits for that matter. So remember, pay it back in full every month. So the only way you can do that is when you budget. So only spend what you can afford, even though you have a bigger credit limit. And then more importantly, just please stay away from minimum payments only. If you can't afford to pay the whole thing, pay as much as you can. If you get into the circle of paying just minimum payments, you will never get out of it. Most credit cards are, I hate to even say that, 20% or 25% more. So just paying the interest or the minimum payment, you could be paying that money for the rest of our lives and we'd never get out of it. So please start with managing your credit well. That's one. I would say the second thing on my list would be saving smart. I always say that money saved is money made, right? I think, and tell me if you guys agree that at some point you had that little piggy bank or somewhere under your mattress or in a drawer in your room where you were collecting any gifts that your grandparents or your mom or dad or you got, right? That is money saved, right? And that money saved is money made. There's so many ways you can save that money. Again, it does not, yes, you're right, like it needs to compound and it needs to grow. But first things first, making sure that you have that right intent, right goal that you just shared there, Jessenia, to make sure you have a goal about what you're saving this money for. And It could be small or broad, right? It could be something like, oh, I need to get my laptop for university, or it could be, I need to save for a car for university or something small or big, right? Yeah. But more importantly, just finding ways to save money. So do I need to go to Tim Hortons or I need to go to Starbucks? I know I gotta say though, like it's a tough one sometimes. My son is okay with Tim Hortons, but my daughter insists on going to Starbucks. So as a parent, for me, it's really difficult too. So how do I convince her? So we put her on a plan. We put her on a little bit of a budget to say, okay, well, if you're gonna have Starbucks this week, that's the only thing you're gonna get this week, or whatever it is, right? So just like as a spender or as a being on the other side, make sure you're being conscious around what's the best way I can still enjoy myself, but also take care. Just like getting gas, picking a time of the day, like downloading an app like Gas Buddy or something to make sure you find the gas station that has the lowest rate or whatever time it gives you trends. So you guys are young, you guys are smart, you guys are way ahead of many of us, the way you think, the way you guys conduct yourself, and the fact that you're even together here putting this event together. I think there's a lot to commend here. So all I could say is just find ways to save, and then let's find ways to grow your money, whether it's through mutual funds, investments, tax-free savings account, and all those vehicles. Look at your bank accounts. Please make sure if you bank with your whichever bank it is, go to only that bank's bank machine. If you go to the bank machine for other banks, they'll charge you another $1.25 and stuff like that. Hey, that's the cost of your coffee, right? So like think smart, plan ahead, and you guys are awesome. I know that you're gonna have a really, really bright future ahead of you. Sky's the limit.
Thank you so much. No, all of the tips and advice you just gave is so valuable, not only to us four, but also everyone else who's watching. So thank you for that. And no, you're completely right. These days with all the technology at our hands, there's so many ways to save in small ways. Downloading that Flip app, for example, that tells you where you can price match your groceries. Like
Yeah.
over time, small things add up. And especially as a student, I go to university out of town, so I'm always looking for some ways or another where I'm able to do that, to save in some way. So thank you so much. And I think we can now move into the Q&A session.
Yeah, I mean, first and foremost, thank you very much. I definitely learned a lot from you just because I am about to turn 18. So I'm still 17, just trying to figure out how to manage my money as well. So I feel like the tips that you gave me today, it really helped me a lot. This gave me an idea of what I should look into and what I should do in the future. So thank you for that. Thank you very much. Um, yeah, I mean, in terms of like the very first question, I was just wondering, like, what got you, like, I guess, into like the financial industry? Like, what inspired you? Just curious about that.
That's a really good question, Rijin. And I would say that um, I wasn't, I was one of those spoiled kids growing up in India. My parents provided, and we were really comfortable living in India, and honestly didn't have to worry much because we were so sheltered. And then when I came to Canada, I think just that's when reality hit. And I just literally walked into a bank and applied for a position. And believe it or not, TD was my first ever job in Canada. So it's quite interesting that 24 years later, I'm still with the same bank. So I found a really good employer. But more importantly, I think what it was is the more I learned or the more I worked, the more interested I kept getting. So to be quite honest with you, for me, it wasn't a profession that I'd chosen. I wanted to be a cop, a police officer, but sure didn't go that route. But for sure. So all I gotta say is for me, it was just, I got into it and then I continued to learn and learn and learn to the point where I am. But it interests me. And I can definitely, from where I see, I've been in a branch for a good part of my career. So I've been in different capacities in a branch. I used to be a financial advisor as well. And I've also taught a lot of junior achievements. So I've gone into schools to teach our high school kids about financial literacy. So definitely there's a massive gap in our educational program. So anything I could do to help, but truly it was a profession that became a part of my life. And now I just embrace it and I love it.
Yeah, I mean, thank you for that.
Yeah, it's amazing that you're able to, work in a profession where a lot of the stuff that you take away from it, you can also bring that into your everyday life and share that with your family or friends or whoever. And I think that's, a really good part of that you're able to give back at the same time. So
Yeah,
it's inspiring for sure.
thanks.
I mean, like, just another question just to add on. I mean, I'm pretty sure you answered this, but like, if I'm younger, I mean, obviously I'm still 17, but like, are there any books or like things that I guess resources that you would suggest looking into just to like prepare yourself when you do become 18 and you're thinking about the next steps?
You know what? The best book that you would ever read is on the internet. Surf the web. I gotta tell you, oh my God, if I ever have to, put a deck together to present at a meeting, or just even think about how am I going to even teach my kids about some of the concepts. There's so much information, Rijin, like you'd be surprised, right? And I know that whatever information you're looking for is there, but there's tons of books that you can also read. So Rich Dad Poor Dad, it's definitely a great one that you can read. And beside that, just I have to say though, and I always waited for somebody to come at my door when I was working in a branch and ask me some of those key questions. But if you are learning, if you are curious, stop by your local bank. And I don't know which financial institution you bank with, but just stop by a local bank that you bank with, sit down and book a meeting with a financial advisor, and then honestly pick their brains. Like you'd be surprised. You can just ask them. I know I've had one student that came to ask me questions, but that person was actually doing a project in school and I could tell because the questions were so scripted. But please just pick the brains of your local financial advisors. They've got tons of knowledge, they've got lots of skills, and they would be able to help you set you up for success right up front. So take that step, I would say.
I will definitely do that.
Yes.
So I have a question. Do you have any advice for youths that are just beginning to get into stocks and cryptocurrency? Because I know personally, for me, it's quite intimidating when I see like all these different stocks and all the other influencers telling me like different things. I think that for youths these days, it could be very easy to get confused and listen to just whatever they hear or like, yeah. So do you have any thoughts about that?
Yeah, no, great question there, Cynthia. So one thing I could say to you is the general rule of investing. The general rule of investing is higher the risk, potentially better return, but only in long term. So remember, anything that is really high risk will get you better returns, however, only over a long period of time. Now, if you are one of those who has an extremely high risk appetite where you can play the stock market and one day if it goes up, you're good, but the other day if it goes down, you're not going to lose your sleep or lose your life saving, then maybe stock market is for you. But if you are young and if you're starting off new and just starting off in your investing journey, I would say educate yourself, but avoid listening to those tips. We've all, and including me, I'm not going to lie, earlier on in my investing days, I heard tips that people would say, oh, get this stock, this is the best deal in town. And sure enough, went for it just because, a friend's friend kind of gave you the tip and off you go, you get it. And then you get excited and the next thing you know, it's gone. Right. So do your research. That's the real important. Every company, if they are listed on the stock exchange, they are required to provide you with annual reports. Some basics on your annual reports would be actually just looking at how that stock is done, or, you could do that research just over, just looking at the trends over your 30, 60, 90 or 1 year or 6 year or even 5 year returns on that stock, right? How much dividends is that stock paying? And again, just research the company. Like basically the blue chip companies normally tend to do a lot better. Again, depending on the time horizon as well. If you're looking to invest only for 5 months or 6 months before you get into your university, I would strongly recommend staying away from anything unless you're ready for a quick flip and you're not going to lose your sleep if it goes in the wrong direction too, right? So you can't invest your entire life savings or everything that you've saved up. So make sure you do your research and listen to the tips, but only follow them if you feel comfortable after doing your research. So that's one. And then please make sure you think through your time horizon. If it is short term and it's high risk, sometimes it's too good to be true. Cryptocurrency is very, very exciting right now, but then we've also seen the most amount of volatility in cryptocurrency. And I can tell you, trying to research it myself, it is a very complex product. It is a very complex investment option. I'm still trying to wrap my head around the mining of the cryptocurrency and all the fun stuff that is associated with it. So I'm not going to say that that is the right way to go. It does seem like the future, but the volatility in it is huge. So think through, are you ready to invest your money in for a good few years, or you are just looking for a very short-term return on your investment? And sometimes, again, if it's 3 to 6 months, truly just keeping it in a savings account may just be the best thing to do, unless you have an extremely high risk appetite where you're okay with losing some of that money or making a lot more too. So it can go in either way direction.
I have a question.
Yeah.
What is the perfect credit score you should have on your credit or debit card?
So credit score, that's a great question, Hunyah. So credit score goes by individual. It is typically monitored. I wouldn't call it monitored, but it's really recorded when you get your first credit product. It follows you, right? So higher the credit score, the better it is. If you are in your 80s, you're great. Lenders would say, yes, this person has done a great job in borrowing money and repayment. So it's really just building that character. But then anything under 650 or 625, you're not going to be able to borrow anything as well. It's quite interesting. So I'll give you an example. The more credit you have, may look very good on your credit bureau, but sometimes it can actually backfire because the lenders may think that you're a credit seeker, that you only survive by borrowing. So, the best way to manage your credit is having a couple of good credit cards, maybe a Visa and a MasterCard, because, again, what is available, which retailer or which restaurant uses what, but then making sure that you use it and you pay it back on time. So it's not the number of credit cards you have, it's the number of time you use your credit card and the frequency or the ability you pay it back that helps build your credit score. So remember that, that's important, and that's number one. Making sure that you don't miss your payments. When you miss your payments, it gets recorded on your credit bureau and you lose points. So everything's based on that points, right? So 800, 825, 850, I think that's the best I've ever seen. That's a really good score. But some activities like, missing your payments or utilizing too much credit, that takes away from your points. But then the other important thing that takes away from your points is doing a credit check. So anytime somebody does a credit check on you, so you go to apply for a credit card, somebody pulls your credit report, you lose 10 points. So if you are one person who loves going to Canadian Tire and the guy is giving you a free, toaster and you get a credit card, hello, you got a credit card, that's great, but then you also lost 10 points. And then for the Bay, you get the 15% discount, and then you get another credit card. There you go. That not only did you get more credit, but you lost 10 more points. So that really, really impacts your credit. So just, again, please, if you can, keep to 2 or 3, whatever makes you comfortable, credit cards, but pay them on time and just use them. I know I love the fact that my mom, who came here from India a few years ago, we got her a credit card, so she was really excited, but she never used it. So then she wanted to go apply for a Bay credit card, and they wouldn't give it to her because they said, you don't have a credit rating. And she said, no, I have a credit card, but she never used it. So it's not about just having a card, using is important, but please repay it back in full if you can.
Yeah, I agree
That's
with
very
that.
relatable.
You definitely have to have discipline over your spendings and your savings. Like I can definitely relate to that because my sister back then, she didn't have much knowledge about credit cards and all that. So she stacked up a very big credit card debt because she didn't understand fully. And she just had, I think, maybe 15 to 20 cards at once. And she wasn't able to pay them back basically because, the interest rate is all different. And when everything is added up, it really creates a huge debt. And like till this day, 20 years later, she's still trying to pay them back.
Yeah. And you know what, though, my biggest worry is the student loans, right? They really help you in getting your education. But by the time you are done your education, you walk away with your first job or, the job of your dreams. But most of that money now has to go towards the repayment of that student's loan. And I know out of experience, again, it took us years to pay off my husband's student loan, right? So it all, like I said, like Jessenia, you had mentioned earlier, your principle is have a goal, save and pay that loan off, right? So again, the government will only require you to pay the minimum payment. But again, you could keep that money that you're getting from your gifts and stuff like that under your mattress, or you could actually pay that loan because you could pay a little bit more, maybe another $20 extra, or maybe another $10 or $100, whatever you can afford. It'll really, guys, trust me, it'll really help you in the long run. Every little bit counts. As much as we feel like, what is this $20 extra going to do? In the world of compounding, it does wonders. So whatever extra you can pay towards it, please make sure you clear up those loans and be very smart about it.
That is relatable because as for myself, I only have one credit card. Only once I tried to apply for 2 or 3, but then I discontinued with them because I felt like, I wasn't earning, I was unable to pay them back, the interest rate and everything. And as for loans, I actually had a lot of struggle with the loan myself. So that's why like now I just pay them off monthly. But other than that, like right after when I graduated from college, I actually had a challenge. So that's where repaying the loan was actually it was a really tough thing at the time, but it's like now I pay monthly. Anytime I get any check, I just give it all to my loan.
Yeah, and you know what? Talk to the banks. I'm not sure which bank your student's loan is with, your OSAP, if it's with the government, but you can do some calculators and just, if you're paying monthly $100, change that to 105 and see what magic it does for you. See how long now it'll take to repay that back. So just a
I'm
little
paying right now
amount.
200, but I'm planning to pay later on about like 500, like in the near future soon. So the
Yeah,
faster I repay.
Good stuff. Good job. But yeah, lots to learn, you guys. The other thing I was going to tell you was, when you talk about the tax-free savings account, it's definitely a great investment option. But remember, there is some requirements, or there's some caveat around it. Like when you are 18 years of age, yes, you can put up to $6,000 in it, but not more than that. If you over contribute, you get majorly penalized by the government. That's one thing. If you take money out of your tax-free saving account, say, for example, in 2021, you cannot put that money back into that tax-free saving account the same year. You can only do it the following year. So there's some requirements around it. So please make sure that you're careful around how you invest. Oh, I see there's a question around COVID affected the market and investing landscape. I think it depends, right? Are we talking earlier on in COVID or where we sit today? I almost see that, consumers on the whole have been just tired of not being able to spend. A lot of more people are now thinking about, traveling. A lot of more people are doing their backyards and putting their pools, and, construction has definitely gone to the next level, but so is inflation, the cost of living, right? The cost at which that same loaf of bread costed you last year, it's a lot different than it is today. So your bill that you go pay at your grocery store, and I'm sure you guys have noticed that as well, it's a lot higher, even though you haven't really put that many extra items in your grocery cart, right? So the cost of living has gone up, but people are tired of just saving or being indoors. So as the economy opens up more and more, we're going to see more investors, more savings to be actually spent. But how are the markets doing? I think the markets, I'm not going to comment too much about it because it moves from one day to another. But overall, the investor confidence is good. Like irrespective of COVID, they did perform quite well, to be quite honest with you. But it really just depends on the type of investment you were aiming for. So obviously, there's been ups and downs in the stock market, but overall, things have definitely gone in a positive direction from an investment perspective. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's been a little bit up and down, but it seems finally, now that we're going back a little bit more into normal, that investor confidence is up. And I think we have a couple of comments in the chat as well. So regarding the financial literacy that we touched upon earlier, that it should be part of high school education in Canada, so that once the teenagers are ready to work for student jobs and they start accumulating disposable income, they know how to allocate funds to pay bills, such as cell phone bills. And I think that's something really important too, that a lot of financial education and literacy really does start at home, and giving your child even like a small bill to pay every month, whether it's something small like their cell phone bill or half their cell phone bill to begin with, so they really know how they can budget. And I think that's something that anyone growing up, even as a child, you might be a little bit frustrated at first that, oh, why is my parent making me pay? But I think overall it teaches a lot of valuable lifelong skills, because eventually you will be at a time where you do have to not only budget for a couple of things, but so many different things in your life, and potentially your children's life as well, and your spouse, for example. So those are all very, very important things. So I think that basically wraps up our Q&A session. Thank you so much, Jyoti, for coming out today and being with us here at Youth for Change. We really appreciate all your helpful insight and all of your tips. And we just want to extend our sincerest gratitude for taking the time out of your busy schedule. I know how busy you are, and, attending our event today and answering all the questions about finances and all of the helpful advice you gave us. So thank you so much.
No, thank you guys. Great job. Really excited to see how well you guys are going to do. And just know that sky's the limit for you. You guys are thinking early and keep that thought process going. You're going to do great. Thanks so much
Thank
for
you
having
so
me.
much. Thank you for the motivation. Yes.
Take care.
Thank
Thanks.
you.
Take
It was
care.
very
Thank you.
informative.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. I feel really sad the fact that you're leaving just because I was learning a lot. So I'm so sad because of that. But thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Hope to see you soon.
Let's connect on LinkedIn. I'd be happy to help you.
Okay, for sure. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah. Welcome. Thanks, guys.
Take care. All right, so I think we can continue on then. That was a wonderful session by Jyoti. I think we all learned a lot. I'm sure the three of you can agree and everyone else watching today. But let's go a little bit into budgeting. And as she mentioned in her presentation, that it's important to save smart. And saving is also a way of, really understanding when you save, even if it's $20 more than you usually would, you have that extra $20 where, for example, if something comes up unexpected throughout your life or anything, you can pay a little bit more towards your student loans or college education. That really is beneficial. But I think what I want to touch on today is the 50, 30, and 20 rule. And that's a simple budgeting technique to help people reach their financial goals. And the rule states that 50% of your after-tax income should be spent on needs and obligations that you must have or must do. So the remaining half should be split up between 20% savings and debt repayment, and then 30% to everything else that you might want. So this rule is basically a template that's intended to help individuals manage their money and save for emergencies in retirement. Then in the needs section is where you would spend half your money on the things that are absolutely necessary, such as mortgage payments, rent, car payments, groceries, insurance, healthcare, and utilities. Half of your after-tax income should be all that you need to cover your needs and obligations. And if you do find that you are spending more than that on your needs, you'll definitely need to reevaluate your budget and your income and either cut down on your wants or try to downsize your lifestyle, perhaps to a smaller home or a modest car. Maybe carpooling or taking public transportation, for example, is a solution, or cooking at home more often instead of eating out. So as a young adult, if you're still living at home or you have some support from your parents, for example, then less money can go towards these items and a greater percentage can go towards savings when you will actually require the money later on in your life. Then in the want sections, this is where you would spend money on things that are not absolutely essential. So this could include dinner and movies out, that new handbag that you've been eyeing, tickets to a sporting event, vacations, the latest iPhone, or maybe even ultra high-speed internet. So anything in the wants bucket is optional if you really think about it. And you can work out at home instead of going to the gym, cook instead of eating out, or watch sports on TV instead of getting tickets to the game. So this category also includes the trade-offs that you may decide to make, such as buying a Mercedes instead of a more economical Honda. And then finally, it should be everyone's goal to try to allocate at least 20% of your net income to savings and investments. So this includes adding money to an emergency fund and a bank savings account, making contributions to a mutual fund account, investing in the stock market, and repaying debt such as student loans. You should have at least 3 months of emergency savings on hand in case you lose your job or an unforeseen event occurs. And then after that, it's important to focus on retirement and meeting other financial goals down the road. So I was just wondering, has anyone ever tried using the 50-30-20 rule in their daily lives, and has it helped you manage your money more effectively?
For me personally, because I still live with my parents, so I put a bigger portion of my savings aside and like less for my wants and needs, I guess. And I think a really helpful tool is if you have like a mobile banking account. A lot of them have like a system where you could set a budget and it would basically remind you. I use RBC and it has like a Know Me Insight feature that like shows you a graph of your spendings, the money in, money out, and how much money you spent on a certain thing like food or groceries.
Oh, okay. That's really helpful actually then. So you can kind of see, for example, if 1 month you're extra high somewhere or lower in the other.
Sometimes you don't even know how much money you spent. For me, it's like Uber Eats. I didn't know I was ordering like that often.
Yeah, Uber Eats it always gets you. Me too.
I agree. even sometimes with some of my orders I have, like I don't notice how much it goes. So I often have to call back and say, okay, I would like to get a refund because I don't want to spend over too much. So yeah, the mobile app, like I'm currently using CIBC, so I agree. Those mobile apps are really helpful.
Yeah, and even small things, such as checking your receipt after you make a purchase. There's been countless number of times where they'll overcharge on something or make a mistake, and something was supposed to be on sale instead. So it's really important to just be cognizant and aware yourself, and just, as Cynthia mentioned before, remain disciplined, because I know, especially as students, youth growing up, a lot of things seem enticing to us. When we see one of our friends have something that we want, then it stays on our mind, and especially the newest technology releases with everything that happens these days. But I think it's important to always look for the long term and understand that, sometimes a little bit of short-term pain leads to long-term gain, because saving now will only mean that you have more in the future if you do invest. And as I mentioned before, the whole thing with compound interest and how you're able to accumulate that over time.
That is relatable, because as for myself, like if it was for in person, if I was to go into a mall, if I have to spend let's say on myself and not get if it's just about the one, sometimes I go for a maximum around 20 for anything. And let's say if it's a day when I really need to spend a lot, only then I spend about maximum 50, probably 20 for food, 20 for eating, and then another 10 for something else. Other than that, it's usually 20 for in person for almost most of the stuff. I don't know.
So everyone has their own personal goals and that restrictions that we make. I know everyone, and if you're able to stick to that, then that's amazing. That's a really great place to start. So continuing on to the next slide. I guess now we can just kind of give a summary and a wrap up of our session today. First talking about personal finances, and then investing, and all of these tips and tricks. We'll definitely be providing you with a handout at the end of this, as always, on our social media, about some of the things and the key takeaways from today. And I would just like to pass it over to, my co-hosts, if they have anything else to say about the topic today, and maybe the most interesting thing or the one takeaway that you got from Jyoti when she was speaking.
Honestly, for me, I think the number one thing is more about it's all about choices, what choices you make in your daily living, how you manage your money. At the end of the day, if you make the right choices, you're setting yourself in a good path. If you make for example, like Cynthia said, if you are going outside and instead of eating at a restaurant, you can cook at your home, or just making sure you check your receipt. Those simple choices essentially lead a long way, and it helps you a lot in the future. It helps you manage your money, and making those smart choices, even Jyoti said. I mean, sorry, I believe that's how you pronounce her name, Jyoti. Yeah. So so she gave a lot of insights on how investing, and how you have to make the right choices. I totally learned a lot from her, and I'm really happy that we were able to have her on today's session.
For sure.
Yeah, another important thing is being more proactive in kind of doing your research and exposing yourself to all the information and news updates about new programs or information about student loans, as well as being more careful about the information that you receive as well. As mentioned earlier, when we talked about influencers, for example, although they may say that this is not financial advice, a lot of times it is actually coming off as financial advice for their audience. And, when people follow these very popular influencers and their thoughts about investing and investing in stocks or cryptocurrency, where they don't actually have the budget to take those risks, it's very it's a risky thing. Basically, is you got to be more careful with your money that way.
I'll add that we have, the one thing I learned is that we have to be careful of how we spend and how we use it, and always track your spending, because you never know where the money is going. So, and we do have expectations when we get the first credit card, but when you actually have to pay it back, that's the part where you have to be careful of the most, because sometimes maybe you might not have enough to pay back. So that's something I learned in there.
Yeah, I think you guys all touched on really important things. Firstly, as Rijin said, it is about choices, and sometimes it's about not making the easiest choice or the most fun choice in the moment. But you do have to think from a long term, and as well as Cynthia, what you were mentioning. There's so much information out there these days as well, and sometimes even I find it hard to kind of differentiate between what's factual and what's not, because everyone seems like they're experts on investing or finance. And yeah, in a lot of cases, they may have more knowledge than me, or may have more knowledge than the average person. But at the end of the day, this is money, and it's your future, and you want to make sure that you're doing the sufficient research yourself, and not just following blindly, or being biased in that way when you are doing your research from a specific source or something. So it's important to see all different sides to it. So awesome, thank you so much. I think that kind of wraps up our session for today. Thank you all, everyone, for coming out today and hearing us speak about investing in personal finance. Once again, we would like to extend our gratitude to Jyoti for taking the time out of her busy schedule to attend our event and providing all of the helpful information and tips regarding finances. And we really hope you all were able to learn something new today. And if you did, please share a video on Facebook Live with any of your family and friends who may be interested. So the recording for this session will be posted on our YouTube channel, Youth for Change. And please stay up to date on all of our events by subscribing to our YouTube and following us on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. So you can go to the next slide. Yeah, so these are all of our social media handles. Please again follow us on there. And as always, thank you so much for spending the evening with us. And now I'll pass it on to Rijin so that he can share our topic for next week.
Yeah, guys. So next week, we'll be talking about how like becoming a leader, some of the key skills to become a leader, for example, communication. What are some ways you can develop those crucial skills to becoming a leader, as well as some tips and some suggestions that you can take home to really develop those skills that you need once again to become a leader. So I feel like next week's session is going to be really informative for you guys, as I believe that leadership is really important skill for a brighter future today, and it's really required for in many industries that you need to work on, in the future. So please stay up to date for that. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you all so much. Please again tune in again for next week for becoming a leader. We're so excited to see you all, and we appreciate your time. Have a great day and rest of your week. Take care, everyone.